All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to talk about something really powerful. Something pretty hopeful, actually. It's what we call the architecture of succession, which is basically nature's ultimate comeback story.
You know you have. We all have. You see that tiny little bit of green just fighting its way up through the concrete. And you probably think, just a weed. But what if I told you that little plant is way more important than you think? Yeah, that's right. That one little plant, it's the very first scene in this huge, epic story of recovery. A story that's happening literally all around us, all the time. So, how does this whole story play out? Well, first we'll cover what this comeback story is all about. Then we'll look at the two ways it can start, one from absolute scratch and another with a bit of a head start. After that, we'll get into the 5 key steps to rebuild, meet the pioneers of this process, and then wrap it all up with why this matters so much. All right, first things first, what are we actually talking about here? There's a scientific name for this whole process, and it's really the core blueprint for how nature heals itself. It's called ecological succession, and the really important words to remember here are gradual and orderly. This isn't just chaos, a total free-for-all. Nope, it's a predictable, step-by-step journey taking a place from, say, bare ground all the way to a super complex and stable community. It's like nature has its own construction plan, and it follows it every single time. So where does this rebuilding even begin? Well, sometimes it has to start on, the expert difficulty level. I'm talking a complete and total blank slate. And that's what we call primary succession. I mean, just picture it. A brand new lava flow that's hardened into rock, or a huge landslide that's left nothing but bare cliff face. There's zero soil, no seeds, nothing. That's where primary succession has to start. And as you can imagine, it is an incredibly slow, difficult process. It all hangs on the absolute toughest little organisms showing up first to get the ball rolling. And this really shows you just how unbelievably slow we're talking. We're not talking about a few years. We're talking centuries. I mean, for the first 50 years, all you might see are lichens, these little things that are literally eating the rock to make the first specks of soil. Then it takes another 100 years for mosses to show up, and then hundreds more before you get anything close to shrubs or trees. The takeaway here is massive. Creating life from nothing isn't just slow. It's a project that takes generations, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. But, okay, what happens when nature has a bit of a cheat code, a head start? Well, that brings us to the second type, secondary succession. This is totally different. It's more like rebuilding a house when the foundation is already there. And that changes the game completely. Think about a forest after a fire or a farm field that's been abandoned. Yeah, the trees or crops are gone, but the most important thing is still there, the soil. And not just any soil. It's often packed with seeds and old roots, just waiting for a chance. And that, right there, changes everything. And you can see the difference so clearly here. Just look at the starting players. In primary succession, you've got lichens that have to make their own soil. But in secondary, you get grasses and weeds that can just pop up and go crazy in the soil that's already there. The result? The comeback story is way faster. We're talking decades, not centuries. Okay, so whether we're starting from scratch or with a head start, the comeback story always follows the same 5-step plan. Let's break it down. Step 1, nudation. You need a bare patch of ground. Step 2 is invasion. This is when the first life arrives, maybe seeds blowing in on the wind. Then, once they start growing, you get step 3, competition. Everybody's fighting for light, for water, for space. That leads to step 4, reaction. And this one is so cool. The plants themselves start changing the place, making the soil better, creating shade. They're basically preparing the ground for the next wave of species. And all of this leads, finally, to step 5, stabilization, where you get a stable, mature community. And let's just dig a little deeper into that invasion step, because it's not as simple as one seed landing. It's actually a 3-part process. First, you have migration. The seeds gotta get there. Then there's ascesis, which is just a fancy word for can it actually sprout and survive? And if it can, the final part is aggregation. Can it reproduce and spread? So it's not just about showing up, it's about surviving and then thriving.
All right, every good story has its heroes, right? Well, in this story, we've got 2 main groups of characters. You've got the tough-as-nails pioneers, and then you have the established city slickers that come in later.
So on one side, you've got the pioneer species. These guys are the first responders, the trailblazers. They are super hardy. They can live in the worst conditions, and their whole job, really, is to make the place livable for everyone else. And on the other side, you've got the climax community. This is the finished product, the big, established city. It's stable, it's efficient, it's got a ton of different inhabitants. Basically, the pioneers do all the hard, dirty work so this beautiful city can eventually be built. Okay, so we've seen the how. But what about the so what? Why does any of this matter? What's the big takeaway here? When you boil it all down, this whole process is about two things: healing and creation. Its number one job is to restore ecosystems that have been damaged. But it does so much more. It's the engine that drives biodiversity. It's what creates the stable forests and grasslands that we all rely on. And it's how our planet makes new, healthy soil. Seriously, without succession, nature would have no way to bounce back, period.
And you know what's really cool? Once you know about this, you start seeing it everywhere. That vacant lot down the street with weeds taking over, that's succession. A patch of forest that's growing back after a fire, that's succession. Every single one is a different chapter in this amazing ongoing story.
So I'll leave you with this. Nature has this incredible, perfected blueprint for resilience, a way to start over and build something beautiful and complex from absolutely nothing. It teaches us so much about patience and about how every little part has a role to play. So the big question is, what can we learn from that blueprint?